woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah. I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up.
Oh my goodness gracious. Just what you all wanted. To talk about the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I want to apologize to everyone watching on YouTube because I think we were about a minute. We were just chit-chatting here because I thought the countdown was on and the countdown wasn't on. So you just got to look at our beautiful faces as we talked about Bill Belichick becoming supposedly the new head coach of the University of North Carolina. But you couldn't hear us. You can only see us. It is the Two Tone Talk podcast, and we've got a special guest today. I'm so grateful that Tyler took some time to be with us today. Tyler Rowland of the Locked On Titans podcast. I am sure you have all watched or listened to the podcast, may even have some everydayers in the house. And Tyler, I appreciate you coming on. I wish I told you this before we got going today. Wish it was under better circumstances. Wish we had a happier, situation. But here we are, and I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, well, regardless of the Jacksonville outcome, the season as a whole has not been a happier situation in reality. So, that's fine. I've been forged through darkness, similar to Bane, and that will continue this year. I live here. Who needs lights?
Hey, you know what? We are a special kind of breed that continue to show up every week. When you start the season with, as you called it, the Flick Six, it really, you think it can't get worse, and then sure enough. I just want to jump right in because, if you're going to talk about the Titans this week especially, you got to talk about head coach Brian Callahan. I don't know if I'm willing to say you've been a Callahan fan, a Calla fan, but you have been a defender. When everybody else was calling for this guy to be fired, in week 2, week 3, you've kind of tried to calm everybody down about Callahan all year. Sunday, I think you would even say bad look for Callahan. Bad look for Callahan. 6 points against the Jags at home. Mac Jones playing quarterback. Not a good look. So the question on everyone's mind, I watched your show yesterday, so I kind of know how you feel about this. Is there even a possibility that Brian Callahan, in your mind, could be a one-and-done coach, or do you think that Amy Adams-Strunk is going to see this thing through?
No, there's not a chance. And it's for multiple reasons, in my opinion. One, you just look at the football reasons. Like, you got to let him build out his program. You got to let him have at least 2 years to see if he can improve. He's a rookie head coach. Never even called plays before. You knew that there were going to be some bumps in the road. You know what I mean? It's like when you're teaching your kid how to ride their bike with training wheels and then being pissed off that they can't do it without the training wheels. Like, you're lucky if you can even get them going on the training wheels. You can't just jump after an hour or two. Oh, you got to ride with no training wheels and be able to ride with your hands off your handles. You know what I mean? Like, there is a level of patience that is required with this. So from a football reason alone, no way. And then you add in the business reason. Amy Adams-Strunk is not going to pay Brian Callahan's contract for the next 3 years without him being on the team, without him being the head coach. Yeah. It's just a business thing from that perspective. So there is no way in the world that Brian Callahan is going to be fired after one season, barring like a scandal or something. You know what I mean? Something outside. Just losing football games and being pathetic on the football field is not going to get Brian Callahan fired in year one. So that's not going to happen. But what I did admit on my show, as you said you saw, he is definitely going to be high up on the list of candidates that could be fired mid-season next year. If they have these type of performances, like we saw against the Packers, against Malik Willis, like we saw against the Lions and the Bills where they just get drubbed, this is probably the worst loss of the entire season against Jacksonville.
Yeah,
if
I
he were to
agree.
do this mid-season next year, then yeah, he's probably fired for sure. But you can't do that right now.
Absolutely. Well, I agree, and I put out a post on Sunday night because I was down after this loss.
It sucks, man.
And I said on Twitter half-heartedly, I said the Titans have reached the point for me that I'm sitting here wondering if we should have kept Vrabel, and I was kind of tongue in cheek, half-hearted, because I've been very like. We should have fired Vrabel is what I've been saying ever since it happened. We talked about that a little bit before we even got going today. We even talked about the Titans when y'all aren't listening. But
can't help it, can we?
oh, I know we're sick in the head. But since Sunday, especially, a lot of the Vrabel people have come out and we should have kept Vrabel. We said, this is proof. I just want to, see if you remember any of this. Just a few scores from the last couple of seasons, because there's been people saying Vrabel would never allow something like this to happen. Last season, Browns 27, Titans 3. Texans led by Case Keenum 19, Titans 16, when we were in the Oiler throwbacks. So that's embarrassing. Also, we played the Texans again last season, 26-3. Bucks 20, Titans 6. The year before that, Bills 41, Titans 7, Eagles 35, Titans 10, and a 7-game losing streak to blow, what was it, a 5-game lead in the division. I mean, that's awful. So what do you say to those people? And I heard you talk about it a little bit yesterday. Those people who long for the good old days with Vrabel and, man, we should have kept him. We were better off with him. Were we better off enough that we would be in a better spot right now with Vrabel?
Is A.J. Brown coming back? Is the offensive line from 2019 going to turn the clock back and come back?
Somebody call Ben Jones. Get him on the phone.
Yes. Get him out here. Tell him to take his shoes off and get ready. But the reality is Vrabel led good rosters to good outcomes. You know what I mean? Like, even in 2021, the Titans still had some players. You know what I mean? Like, great job by Vrabel. But also, that team scored 16 points and had one of the worst playoff losses in Tennessee Titans history that year. So, like, were they as good as your typical 12-5 team? If you're honest, no, they weren't. You know what I mean? And a lot of people in the NFL who aren't Titans people even said that. And we got mad all season long that the Titans didn't get respect despite being the number 1 seed in the AFC. And everybody was like, well, because they're not that good. They're not as good as the record shows. And those people were proven right. So to me, it's like, if you're a good coach and you can get good results with a good roster, and then when your roster is actually poor, your team's bad, and Vrabel 6-18 in his last 24. Well, then how good of a coach really are you? This is a grass is always greener. Thinking about times when the Titans had better players, not when they had a significantly better coach. Now, I admit, Mike Vrabel in year 7 of being a head coach is probably a better head football coach than year 1 of Brian Callahan at 39 years old being a rookie head coach. That is probably true. And I would even admit that I think the Titans probably win more games this year with Mike Vrabel at head coach, but not enough to be in the playoff hunt. They're not going to win. They wouldn't be at 6 or 7 wins right now fighting for a playoff spot. They would be 4-9, or they would be 5-8 or something like that. And they would just be mediocre all the same with some disappointing losses and some bad, pathetic offensive performances and bad special teams again, and a ton of pre-snap penalties, which was a problem for the Titans last year. You know, they were second in the NFL in false starts, I think, last year. So to me, it's like, would they be a little bit better? They'd probably have 1 or 2 more wins. But does that make a significant difference in our happiness or where the team is going? No, it doesn't. So it may suck this year, but I still think that Mike Vrabel was not the right coach to lead the Titans into the future. And Brian Callahan may not be either. but I know that Mike Vrabel wasn't either. So that's all that really matters to me in this discussion.
You know what I always go back to, even people who are out on Callahan, and I'm very concerned about Brian Callahan. I'm
fair to have concern right now,
I'm
for sure.
yes, very concerned. But I hear from people every day, and maybe you could shed some light on this. There are people who want to fire Brian Callahan but keep Will Levis, and I want to use that as an opportunity to segue into talking about Will. If you're going to fire Brian Callahan, if that happened, would it not be better off to trade Will at that point? Because now you're going to ask the guy to learn his third offense in 3 years. That's not good for him. That's not good for the organization. I don't think you have the luxury of getting one without the other at this point. I mean, would you say that's a fair statement?
I don't think it's necessary, but I think you're to a point where, look, Will is good. You know, he's okay. You know, I continue to say what I thought from the first month. Will Levis is never going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL. He is always going to be a product of a situation, which, I mean, outside of like 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, everybody is. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality of football. But I would say that if you were going to fire Brian Callahan and you were going to bring in another coach, let that coach pick his quarterback, whether he wants somebody in free agency, whether he wants to move up in the draft and get him, because at some point you have to have some continuity. You have to have a guy who believes in the guy that he's playing under. You got to have a guy who believes in the quarterback that he's with. So if you're going to make that kind of drastic change, why not just get real crazy and just do something wild like that? I mean, I don't think that Callahan's going to be fired. I don't think that Will Levis is going to be gone. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, I guess so. But, I mean, at that point, if that's what they're doing, then sure, go ahead. Why not?
Well, when it comes to Will Levis, clearly you could not start the year more disastrous for him. I mean, awful.
Miserable.
And now he comes back from injury, was playing at a much higher level. Sunday against Jacksonville, not his best showing. You've said in the past you think he's the best option for 2025. Do you still believe that?
Yes, I do. And I honestly, it comes down to the draft quarterbacks. And I just simply don't think that Sanders or Ward are good enough to take that kind of risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it would be like if you had $50 to go grocery shopping and you had already spent $15 on steaks, and then you're getting your other stuff, and then you go back and say, well, I got $20, I'm going to buy more steaks. And now you spent $35 of your $50 on steaks. Like, you just can't use your assets that way to go away from Will and move up in the draft to get one of these quarterbacks, which is what you're going to have to do at this point, because I don't see the Raiders or the Giants winning a ton of games here down the stretch. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to pull that off, you would have to use so much of your draft capital, and you would just totally piss away Will Levis's draft pick from 2 years. You're just killing so much of your assets that I just don't think it makes enough sense for how good those quarterbacks are. They're just not rock solid enough prospects for me to trade a bunch of picks to move up, use the first round pick on them, totally erase and cancel out the second round pick of Will Levis. He's played okay enough. We need to build the roster around him. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is when the roster is as bad as it is right now. Yeah. So it would just be fruitless, in my opinion, to go try another quarterback, because these guys aren't C.J. Stroud. They're not Joe Burrow. They're not these quarterbacks that come in and change the franchise overnight. I agree that those guys are out there. If you can get your hands on one, then awesome. But these two guys, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, are not that. Yeah. So it wouldn't make any sense to count on them being that when they've never shown in college that they are that. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. Whether you believe in Will long-term or not, the best route is for him to play quarterback next year and you to use another offseason to try to fix this roster.
Well, when it comes to Will, specifically talking about him, like I said, has been playing better football, much better since he came back in from injury. We still see, the pick six against Houston. We still see missing Chigakonkwo on that touchdown.
Oh, man.
Awful. Brutal.
People trying to rationalize that too. It's despicable. Like,
that's
it just shows you the internet has jumped the shark, because if we can't all sit down as a family and say, wow, that was a terrible miss.
Yeah.
And you have people, well, the play was to Simmons. And, I saw somebody say, like, he trusts Nick Van Etten. What? What are we talking about? No, he missed a wide open guy. It's unacceptable. It's garbage. It's terrible. Does it mean Will Levis is garbage and terrible? Not necessarily, but we all just have to be on. That was a disgusting miss. You can't miss that.
And if we're at a place where he trusts Nick Vanette more than Chigakonkwo, so that literally leads right into my next question. And I guess we just said the answer. Do you think there's a severe lack of accountability? I think personally, there are people, and this happens in every fan base, I know, they want Will to be the guy so bad. Mm-hmm. And this happened with Marcus too, and I was guilty of it back then.
Bad with Marcus, yeah.
We will blame anybody. There are two plays in particular, and I just referenced them. The pick six against Houston a couple of weeks ago, and the miss to Chig on Sunday, where I got on X afterwards, and I was shocked to see so many posts that were like, Callahan, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe this. I can't believe NPF and Latham. And I'm like, maybe I'm just old school. I just blame the dude who threw it. Maybe I'm just from a bygone era, but to me, that's on Will. That's on him. Do you see this in your comment sections where it's like, just twisting ourselves in knots to find anyone else to blame other than Will Levis?
Yeah, I think that what happens is people feel those negative feelings when the Titans lose, and they just lash out at the people they don't like, whether it makes sense or not. Like, if you came into the game as someone who didn't like Brian Callahan, well, anything bad that happens, you're going to blame Callahan. J.C. Latham blows an obvious block. Brian Callahan, you idiot. How could you go for a Hail Mary there? You don't like Brian Callahan? Brian Callahan, how could you call a stupid play like that? I don't care if Chig was wide open. It's a stupid play. Like, no, he had a guy wide open in the red zone, and the quarterback missed him. Like, no, J.C. Latham totally blew a block against Josh Hines-Allen and got Will Levis destroyed. Like, those aren't on Brian Callahan. It's not Brian Callahan's fault that happened. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there are things where if you didn't like Will Levis, then you're going to say, oh, that was a bad pass to NWI at the end of the game. No, that hit NWI in the hands. He threw it perfectly where NWI could get it, and a better wide receiver, which nobody wants to admit because NWI is like the cute little puppy on the porch that everybody loves because he's like this bright spot. But the Titans need better wide receivers than NWI. I don't care about the touchdowns. They need a better wide receiver. There are wide receivers out there in the NFL who make that catch because they have better hands. They have a better vertical. They're more athletic. They're playmakers. You know what I mean? So, like, whoever you don't like in these kind of games, you're going to find a way to blame them and them only and excuse the other people who you do like. So, to me, I blame everybody. Yeah. And that's why everybody gets mad at me, because I blame everybody. Like, Brian Callahan, you're a moron for some of these things. Yeah. Will Levis, you're good but not good enough. And the people around you, not good enough. Like, it's all not good enough. And people don't want to accept that because they want to defend who they like and hate who they don't like. So we can never have true, honest discussions because people aren't willing to criticize the people they like. And honestly, that mentality is in the internet discourse far outside of sports. Yeah. That's in every aspect. I like this guy. They do nothing wrong. Other guys do everything bad. And it's just, it's tribal. We're all so tribal now with our internet allegiances. Yeah. That's just the way that it is. But I can't be like that in my soul.
No, absolutely not. And going off of that, I see every day people who have some interesting suggestions on what the Titans should do at the quarterback position in 2025. So I want to do this little segment here. I'm going to throw out some of the names that have been mentioned to me as, this is who we need to put at quarterback next year. And you can just give a quick summarization of why you think this would not be a better course of action than Will Levis. And I'm going to combine Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, just kind of a rookie quarterback in the draft. What do you see from Shedeur, which I don't even think Coach Prime would let him come here anyway? What do you see from Shedeur or Cam Ward that makes you say we're not any better off with them. I have my answers, but what are you seeing there?
I honestly do think that Prime would let Shedeur come to
Okay.
Tennessee. That's where I'm at. I don't think that, I know that everybody is like doomsday right now. The Titans are terrible. Why would he? I think he would allow that to happen. Nashville's a big enough city in the South. Like the Titans are, I think he would let that happen. But I haven't started like my full on scouting yet, but just from like, James Foster, No Flags Films does great draft stuff even this early. Other quarterback people, Jordan Reed and things like that I follow, and then watching them myself. Shedeur Sanders holds the ball too long.
Yeah.
I know he's had a bad offensive line, but it would make sense to be the other way if you had a bad offensive line rather than holding the ball too long. He doesn't have elite arm velocity or talent, and he doesn't have elite mobility either. He's just a very slightly above average guy in all of those circumstances. He's not going to be an elite talent like Lamar or Josh Allen or, like we're not getting that. He doesn't have a Justin Herbert arm, And then Cam Ward makes some of the same boneheaded decisions that Will Levis does. He's a turnover machine. He makes bad reads. He tries to play hero ball, and it gets him into trouble. So he has more natural talent than Sanders does, Cam Ward. He's bigger, stronger, faster, better arm, more mobility, all that. But, he isn't some Lamar Jackson in college with the rushing either. So I just don't see either of them as elite enough prospects to move away from Will Levis. To me, they just kind of seem like we'll be in a similar situation in 2 years if we pick one of those guys.
Let's shift to free agency. This is a name I've heard a lot, Sam Darnold. What say you?
That's a no for me as well. It's going to be a no for me, dog. But, I guess, what are we looking for? Because if we want to go 9-8 or we want to go 8-9, Sam Darnold is awesome this year because he has awesome coaching.
Yeah.
He has Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, good offensive tackles. He has a great defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Everything around Sam Darnold isn't all of a sudden an amazing player. He just has the best supporting cast around him that he's ever had.
Yeah.
And now he looks good. It goes back to Bucky Brooks from NFL. You're either a tractor or a trailer. And what we're all desperately hoping for the first time, and I know that people get mad about this, but the first time in Tennessee Titans history, we want a tractor that pulls the team along, that elevates everybody else. An elite quarterback, that's what we've all been begging for 20 years now. And Sam Darnold ain't that. So maybe he's your bridge guy until you get to whatever, but he's not a long-term solution. And if you aren't a long-term solution, I'm just not that interested at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I don't really care about winning 9-8 games with Sam Darnold. And this cast around him is nowhere near Minnesota right now. So it wouldn't even make sense to me. It's not like he would make them a good team.
Just want to say it's good to see Titans Rossi in the chat today. Come on, everybody. What's up, Titans Rossi, my man?
The two most beautiful voices in the Titans content community. My God. Rossi and then you, Brad, you guys are voices of angels out there.
Man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I get a little jealous. I did a little choir in my day, but I always had to stand in the back so that they wouldn't hear me, But I guess not all of us get great voices. Some of us get great hair.
Hey, there you go. I would trade with you, man.
I would make the trade too, man. You can sing, bro.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. For those that don't know, I do sing my theme song and everything on the channels. I think a lot of people don't know that. Another name, this one almost makes me just want to throw something out this window right here. Justin Fields. I mean,
deep sigh, complete nonsense. I mean, if you want Will Levis with a worse arm and better legs, then go ahead. Because Justin Fields can't read the field. He's slow processing, bad decision maker. Instead of interceptions, you're going to get a ton of fumbles. Justin Fields is a backup. He shouldn't be a starter. That wouldn't make any sense with Brian Callahan's system either, with the quick timing passing and quick reads and getting the ball out of your hand. And it's the total opposite of that. That is the most nonsensical answer that I've seen throughout the season. It's Justin Fields.
Hold on.
Oh,
I
you
got a
got one
couple
more that's
more.
even worse?
These are just from my comment section. I don't know what you've experienced in yours. Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, has anybody watched Aaron Rodgers this year? You know, like I'm convinced, man, that like 70 to 80% of Titans fans don't watch other teams. They watch the Titans for 3 hours on Sunday, and then they don't watch other football games very often. You know, like they just watch their Titans and then they're done with football for the day because Aaron Rodgers has been awful this year. He can't move around at all. You have to have second reaction playmaking in today's NFL. You have to be able to make something happen when the actual play breaks down. That is the key. All of the best quarterbacks in the league do that right there. And Aaron Rodgers cannot do that anymore. So there's no way that the Titans would be better with Aaron Rodgers than they were this year. Like, it would be worse because he can't move around. And with this offensive line, that is just a train headed towards disaster.
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out.
I like it better than Justin Fields.
Yes.
I got to say that. I like it better than Fields.
Yeah. I just want to say K Vic in the chat says my two faves. I appreciate that.
Yo.
And Splack Velly Smith says two of the best podcasters on YouTube for the Tennessee Titans. That is very, very kind of you. Very kind
Appreciate
of you.
it. Tighten up.
Rand Carthon, you've been a big defender of him as well. I like Rand. And I like Rand. I always remember a lot of the things he did in the offseason were things that we all said woohoo to.
Exactly.
Do you still think Rand Carthon is doing a good job?
Yes. Out of Will Levis, Brian Callahan, and Rand Carthon is the one guy who I'm like, how can we be mad?
Yeah.
You know, like, how can we be mad? Most of the good things about this team are because of Rand Carthon. I know that Latham has struggled against really good competition lately, but Latham has been the best offensive lineman on the team for a lot of weeks during the season. I would say it's Peter Skoronski now because he's been balling out in the last, 8 weeks. But who drafted both of those guys? We need help on the O-line. Everybody's begging for an offensive line draft pick. Well, Rand Carthon did that twice. He went out there and got that. I mean, Will Levis has been a bright spot here in the last month. That's a second-round draft pick rather than you could have Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young with top 5 picks. What would you be doing then? You know what I mean? Like, Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard have been the most explosive playmakers on the team, and they would be just in a terrible place without those guys. Tavondre Sweat has been a good pick. Like, some of the free agent signings, Sebastian Joseph Day, you know, like, he's made good moves.
You have history with Tavondre Sweat, don't you?
I do. Luckily, all was forgiven. He personally retweeted my video and said it's all good. So shout out to T Sweat, more forgiving than some of these Twitter hooligans. That's for sure. But, you know, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is a good pick.
Yeah.
He got Quandre Diggs in here. Everybody wanted that. I don't like the signing of Kenneth Murray necessarily, but whatever. He brought NWI back when NWI was a free agent. Everybody's loving him. You know what I mean? Like, Rand Carthon has done a pretty good job. I don't see how we can hate on what he's done. They're just not winning games, so everybody is freaking out. That's all that it comes down to. Like, it doesn't mean because they're 3-10 that everything has been terrible. You know, like, it's just not the way that you evaluate things in life. Is to just throw the baby out with the bathwater anytime things go poorly. Like, it's just, I question whether these people are making good decisions in their regular lives. Like, you know, are you managing your money correctly? Are you giving up on a job that you just started in 2 weeks because somebody says the wrong thing to you? Like, what decisions are you making in your regular life to, like, be this emotional with your football team? Maybe that's the escape. They don't have to be as logical with football, so you can just be emotional and irrational. But, like, it just does make me wonder when these thousands of people are saying, fire this guy, fire that guy, this guy sucks. Like, how's your life going? You know, like, what are you doing well? What decisions do you know? And I think if we knew more about the people freaking out, we might be like, maybe I don't want to listen to you anyways.
Yeah, I know your time's valuable. I don't want to hold you all day. I do want to take a quick trip down memory lane, and then I've got another question for you.
Sure.
I just know how passionate you are about this topic. When you look at where the Titans were a few years ago, number 1 seed, 12-5, looked like everything was going in a good direction. To me, the moment when everything started to go south was on an April evening during the draft when we decided that it would be a good idea to trade the best receiver we've ever had. I know there have been other things. Bad draft picks by John Robinson, offensive line all got old and retired or went to another team. Tannehill got older. He was a limited time offer. I understand there are other elements at play, but as you look back with a couple years hindsight now, does it not feel like, because it does to me, I wore my AJ jersey yesterday on the pod as a reminder of how you get from point A a few years ago to point B where we are now. To me, that moment signifies when I sat there and said, we're in for bad times here these next few years.
I lost all confidence. I mean, the draft picks, people have bad draft picks. Picking where the Titans picked in the draft, early 20s, stuff like that, late 20s, that's a bit of a crapshoot anyway because you're drafting guys who aren't first-round talents, but you're drafting them in the first round. It's just kind of being in the 20s, late 20s, that's where you're at. But the moment I lost complete confidence in John Robinson was when he made that decision. People could talk about Derrick Henry all they want. I said in real time while it was happening, no, A.J. Brown is what makes this team special. A.J. Brown is the best player on the football team, not Derrick Henry. It's A.J. Brown, and it's obvious who made this team special. So, yeah, what a disaster. And I agree with you that out of all of the bad draft picks and the moves that didn't work, like Clowney and Julio and all of that, it all didn't matter when you had A.J. Brown because he was so special that he could lift the offense up when they needed it most. And, that right there, you're 100% right. That's the true moment where, the end of the world began right there. That is the flashbulb moment where the Titans went from a good team that could continue to build to a disaster.
Yeah, and you got to keep in mind what a slap in the face to the fans because we had just gone through what is to me the most heartbreaking loss I've ever. I mean, I lost sleep over that Bengals game, and this was the next.
Disaster,
this was the next thing that happened. This was 3 months later, and so those two events back to back. That is tragedy and then tragedy again a few months later. And that is how you lose the trust of your fan base right there.
Exactly that. That's how you get an empty stadium in the middle of December.
I mean, so on that note, 4 games left. People will say meaningless. And in the grand scheme of things, we're mathematically eliminated. But what are you hoping to see with these last 4 games? You got to have a reason to tune in. You got to have a reason, a pulse that makes you want to even bother turning the game on and watching. And it's, of course, we're legitimate fans. It's about more than just, I got to cover the Titans. No, we love it. We love it. We love this team even on the worst days. So what reasons are you tuning in? What are you looking for these last 4 weeks that's given you kind of a reason to tune in?
2 things. I want to keep seeing Will Levis. That's obviously the most interesting thing. I hope he's going to be able to play. It would be a true disaster if we had to watch Mason Rudolph the last month of the season. And then 2, I want to see if the team quits on Brian Callahan.
Yeah.
I want to see how they respond, especially this game against the Bengals, which Brian Callahan didn't get fired or anything. There's no negative emotion, but we know it always means a little bit more when there's a personal connection between, player and a former team or coach and the former team, or there's always that little extra motivation when those things happen. So I'm really curious to see whether the team lays down and dies on Brian Callahan, because that would be a bad sign for next year, or if they eke out a couple of wins here, play their best. But ultimately, really, I just want to see Will Levis. I just want to see how he plays and see if he can continue to get better, because that's the real thing that gives us the most hope, right? If Will Levis plays well, that's where most of the hope is going to be derived from. And really, I just want hope going into next year. That's in professional sports. You sell wins or you sell hope. And right now, we are devoid of both. So I would just like a little bit of hope going forward.
I'll also have my eye on. I mean, I'd like to see Cedric Gray get a little work. I'd like to see James Williams
Yeah.
get a little work at linebacker. Why not?
More Bryce Oliver.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Let's work him in there. I want to see Tajay Spears bounce back. It's been a terrible year for him. I think they have to consider drafting a running back late in the draft, like 5th, 6th round, something like that. Like just to, be prepared if he's gonna have issues. So they can't run Tony Pollard the way they did this year. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten hurt yet.
Oh, yeah. I also said at this point, mathematically eliminated, I said just go ahead and cut in PF. Get him off the team and throw Jalen Duncan in there. He's at least younger, and you can see if you can get a rotational guy there.
Well, I don't want Will to get hurt, so
true,
I'm hoping that Leroy Watson is back in the lineup this week.
What a sad place we're in that we're sitting here. Man, I hope we get Leroy Watson back. I'm gonna call out names of guys that are on the team right now. Just a simple yes or no answer. Do you want this guy on the team next year? These are guys that are currently on the team. If you want to elaborate on any of them, feel free. NWI.
Yeah, sure.
Tyler Boyd.
Well, they need to with both those guys because they're connected. They need to add 2 wide receivers in the draft. They need more explosion.
Yeah.
They need more agility. They need younger guys to build around. But yes, I would like to have Tyler Boyd back. You can never have too many weapons.
I think I already know the answer to this one. Traylon Burks.
No, it's over. It's over.
Dylan Radins.
Yes, I do want Dylan Radins back. He is not an elite guard, but I think he's solid enough. And if you gave him good right tackle play, he would be even better. I'm a yes to Dylan Radins.
Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, I'm only asking this because every day I have people saying, trade him. Jeffrey Simmons.
Yes. What are we doing?
Harold Landry. This is an interesting one. He's kind of...
I would tell you, early in the season, I would have said this is nonsense. But he just has not been consistent enough. And after the ACL, he doesn't quite have the bend and the speed that he had before. And that's his only move. He's always been a one-trick pony in the pass rush. He never developed other consistent pass rush moves, even though they tried and tried and tried.
Yeah.
So that dip and bend that he uses with his speed rush is all he has. And he's going to be older now. For the money that he's making, I think he is somebody who the Titans could realistically consider it cutting for the money purposes.
What about Arden Key?
Sure. I mean, it's only $7 million. They just need another edge rusher. Yeah. Arden Key and Harold Landry can't be the starting edge rushers next year. So, sure, if it's like how I feel about wide receiver. Bring NWI and Boyd back, but you can't run it back like you did this year.
Another one I think I already know the answer to, Kenneth Murray.
I think he's going to be back, whether we like it or not. But, yeah, I would be fine to move on from him. I've never been a big fan.
Amani Hooker.
Yeah, bring Amani back. He's getting a little slower, and he struggles a little bit with, like, match coverage and man coverage. But he makes plays on the ball. They need that. Keep Amani Hooker around.
Ryan Stonehouse. Seen some people complaining about Stoney.
Yeah, let him back. I mean, what are we doing here? They're not going to find a better punter in the offseason, and a lot of the issues with the punt team and special teams and stuff is not his fault. So it's never been his fault. He was amazing, and Craig Aukerman, people seem to forget, got his leg snapped in half.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike Vrabel. And then this year, there was a bunch of punt blocks at the beginning of the year, and he was clearly scared. So, yeah, I'm bringing Ryan Stonehouse back. No way.
Tyler Rowland of the Locked On Titans podcast, and he also has his other channel, Tic Tac Titans, where he breaks down film every week. God bless you for having to watch some of these films, especially.
It's been tough. It's my motivation this week has been waning. I'm not like I got a little bit of a cold, and the game was so terrible. I'm like, I guess I'll get to it Wednesday.
But go check out Locked On Titans. Go check out Tic Tac Titans, and he's there. You're there all year, off season, in season.
Yeah.
You're there all year. And this is the question I ask every guest before we sign off. Your Tennessee Titans Mount Rushmore. Not necessarily the best players, but your Mount Rushmore.
My personal Mount Rushmore is Kevin Dyson.
Okay.
Keith Bullock.
Oh.
Kevin Byard. And Chris Johnson. I put A.J. Brown in there, but people freak out. A.J. Brown is like my favorite player we ever had, which is sadness. But I'll put Chris Johnson in there instead.
I'm a big Keith Bulluck guy.
I played linebacker, so that was and he had the arm sleeves, and I love the aesthetic, and he was an athlete, and he was big, and Keith Bulluck was my dog. So
awesome, man. I had his jersey as a kid. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Appreciate Tyler for taking the time to be with us. The Tennessee Titans, 4 games left, and we will grit our teeth and get through them somehow. Go check out Locked On Titans. Go check out Tic Tac Titans. Follow him on X at Tic Tac Titans, and follow me on X at @2tone_podcast. Appreciate you coming on, Tyler. Tighten up, and we'd love to have you back on sometime.
Absolutely. Tighten up.